Hi, everyone. Today, I'm going to tell you about a fascinating story set in a werewolf world. The protagonist, Avery, is branded as an unfortunate with a permanent mark on her body, symbolizing her inability to find a soulmate. Yet, in a confrontation with Zephyr, she retorts sharply, "At least I don't have to listen to any man." Prologue: to be an unfortunate is not a good thing. Pups are warned about it. In the way they're told about hell, or rogues. It is not a title, or a role, it is a fact of life. And once you're branded, people will know. The brand is on the left shoulder blade, and nothing removes it. Usually, only low-ranked pack members get branded. But the Wilco family seems to have a curse on them. How else could you explain a member of the family being branded every generation? Part 1. The forest floor trembled under the weight of powerful paws as a majestic gray wolf tore through the underbrush. With each bound, the alpha werewolf's muscular form propelled him forward, a fraying bag strap clenched between his teeth. As he burst into the sun, the wolf's momentum carried him forward, causing him to tumble gracefully at the feet of a formidable blonde woman. Her emerald eyes flashed with anger, foot tapping impatiently against the ground as she crossed her arms over her chest. "You had a meeting at 11, she growled, her voice laced with frustration as she spun on her heel and strode towards the imposing pack house looming in the distance. In a fluid motion that spoke of years of practice, the wolf transformed into a man. York, the irresponsible and playful alpha, hastily pulled on a pair of shorts as he jogged after his sister. "Avery. No, stop. Please don't ignore me," he whined, his voice carrying a hint of desperation as he finally caught up to her. Avery, ever the responsible and efficient counterpart to her brother's carefree nature, snarled, "I had to deal with that insipid bastard for 20 minutes. York, you skipped to meetings with him this week. You're the alpha. Not me." Her words were sharp enough to make even the bravest wolf cower. "Ave," York pleaded, his tone bordering on childish. "You could have been alpha. If you want to, you still can." His attempt at placating her backfired spectacularly. Avery whirled around, her hand wrapping around his throat with surprising strength. York, unfazed by her outburst, easily pried her fingers away and rolled his eyes as he sauntered into his office. "Did anybody else call? Or was it just Zephyr?" he asked, glancing over his shoulder as he made his way through the room to his attached private office. Avery, collapsing into her chair behind her meticulously organized desk, rattled off dead, asking why we're both still single, then apologizing to me for being inconsiderate. "And Arabella from Blue Bramble called 4 times for you." York paused, processing the information before rolling his eyes dramatically. "Arabella? I thought I told you to get rid of her." He sighed, donning a shirt and perching his glasses on his nose. "I did. Then you screwed her again. It's your issue now, little man." Avery shrugged, her efficient nature evident as she sifted through the towering stack of paperwork before her. As she ticked another item off her extensive to-do list, Avery glanced at York, noting the hint of stress in his usually carefree demeanor. "Well, at least she's not pregnant," Avery quipped, a slight smirk playing on her lips, her words a testament to York's casual approach to relationships. "Avery, fuck off. Don't put thoughts like that into my head," York grumbles, running a hand through his sandy blonde hair, opening his laptop reluctantly. The Wilco siblings work in relative silence for the rest of the afternoon, with their computers beeping every few minutes. Avery, the man at the head of the table, starts, and the blonde girl straightens a bit, turning her head to look at him. "How does it feel to be an unfortunate?" She stills, feeling her heart clench a bit, as everyone around her turns to the man and starts scrolling at him. Avery is containing her anger, but her eyes are flashing black. Her wolf is trying to surface, and Avery is considering letting her unleash on this pathetic excuse for an alpha. The visiting alpha tenses a bit, and Avery stares him down, her icy blue eyes boring into his pathetic soul. Well, It was sad for a while, but then I remembered. I can screw anybody I want and don't have to listen to any man. She smirks, and the man's face takes on an angry red color. Richard, are you going to let her speak like this and act like that? The man gasps and Avery as father looks up from his electronic tablet, nearly raising a brow. Well, Bella Witch, well, I don't have to be worried about grandpups anytime soon, which really suits me down to the ground. And she's very talented. A mate would stifle that. She deserves to have fun. The same fun your sons have. Kyle, Richard states, patting his daughter on the shoulder and returning to whatever he was reading. York continues to stare at Kyle, and the man notices, looking contemptuous. Still unmated. York. He sneers, and the blonde sighs. Well, oh, a witch, well, I am the youngest alpha on the council. I guess I'll have to just keep my whores in my title. The young man shrugs, much to a red-headed lady's horror. Children. Language. She chastises, before going back to her soup. Ruffians. All of them. Kyle mutters, to which all for present members of the alpha family of Rapid Rock say hun. Avery and York made the perfect team, the dumb blonde. Zephyr good looks made other alphas doubt them, but always to their detriment. They were cold and harsh, and dominated boardrooms. Their middle sister was a team player, so she didn't count. After the disastrous dinner, the two retire back to their office, both irritated. Who are you taking tonight? Oh, Demon Queen. York teases, looking at his sister and practically being able to see steam coming off of her tense form. Maybe you're beta. Maybe you're gamma. I haven't decided yet. She grumbles, rolling her eyes at him. As he scowls, would you leave the gamma alone? H.E.S. so tired. He hisses, to which Avery raises a brow. H.E.S. the gamma for a reason. He plans and executes very well. She smirks, licking her lips, much to York's disgust. Jesus Christ. If you leave him alone, you'll stop going to Arabella. He mutters, and Avery smirks with a shrug. Suits me either way. Find out where your beta is. She laughs, typing up some notes onto her laptop from her pages. H.E.S. made it now. You know that. York grumbles with a deep scowl marring his smooth forehead. I need his help with a file. Dumbass. Avery retorts irritably. York opens and closes his mouth as silence. They continue to work in silence for 10 minutes, until Avery gets a mind link. For fuck's sake. She hisses, standing up so quickly that her chair falls over. Boarders. Alpha Zephyr is here. She growls, and York leaps up, looking extremely bothered. I haven't seen him into years, and I don't want to talk to him. Anyone else would get the memo. Ivy skipped 12 meetings. York mutters, as the two siblings storm down the halls of the mansion to go to the border. Avery has a permanent scowl on her face at the prospect of dealing with the 22-year-old alpha, whose pack had the oddest rules shed ever seen. Avery had refused to deal with him in person since he became alpha. She couldn't stand his father, and the son even was worse, pious and religious, to things she couldn't stand. The two were almost at the border when they saw their father, who was holding his tablet and had a scowl sitting firmly on his face. York, you better take responsibility for this. I'm not having the Death Mountain pack on my doorstep again, he mutters. Avery and her father shared similar views on why they didn't like the Death Mountain pack, mainly because of their policies. In fact, that pack was actually called Moonstone Mountain, but the father and daughter had nicknamed it Death Mountain, as the pack believed in human sacrifice to the goddess. Nobody was happy when dealing with them, but Avery was probably the most unhappy. Part 2. Alpha Zephyr was a pretty man. It had to be said. He was strapping, standing ahead above most of the pack warriors. He had dark skin, the color of chocolate, and the most mesmerizing eyes that Avery had ever seen. But, as always, he had his signature arrogance mark on his face. He had pissed her off again, before even opening his mouth. His eyes lit, his eyes landed on Avery, and a smile descended onto his lips. as he walked closer to her with his arms open, going in for a hug. She punched him in the throat. "Goddess, and I thought you might be happy to see me." He beams. "The video cameras don't do you justice. Miss Wilkotiti, you're even more stunning in person." Avery continues to stare at him, quirking a brow slightly, while York glances at his sister nervously. He really didn't her starting a pack war. But it wouldn't come to that. Moonstone were a generally calm, peaceful pack. Well, they were since Zephyr had taken over from his father. "Hello, Alpha Zephyr," York grits out, as Avery continues to stare at the man. "To what do we owe the pleasure of your visit?" Zephyr smiles. He has stopped and tilts his head an inch to look at Avery. "Your sister said some harsh things on the phone. They were very harsh, but they were true. I'm here to discuss a truce," Zephyr says, straightening his posture and dropping his smile. The Wilkotiti try to hide their surprise and move to the mind link. "What the fuck?" York says, schooling his face to a calm expression. York merely chokes, being entirely able to believe his sister said this to an alpha much more powerful than her. Right. I suppose we'd better invite you in. Then, York finally states after 10 minutes, offering his hand to Zephyr, who's more interested in Avery. Zephyr takes Avery's hand from her side and drops it after a few seconds, a disappointed look on his face. "I didn't believe them. You know," the tall man says, as he and Avery bring up the back of the group moving towards the house. He can feel her confused gaze on the side of his face, so he continues quickly. "I didn't believe them when they said you were an unfortunate. I see the brand now, and am sorry," he says softly, patting her shoulder. Avery remains quiet, surprised by this alpha sympathy. They're all usually quite judgmental of her status, so his sympathy, although annoying, was surprising. But Kitty gets old really fast. She chuckles. "But thank you. I presume you were coming here hoping I was your mate." He sighs and nods, shaking his head with regret afterwards. "You would have been a kick-ass Luna," he compliments, and she flushes. "If it isn't meant to be, it isn't meant to be." She shrugs and leads him into the house, with a much better character profile on this man than she had 2 hours ago. Avery feels sadness and can feel the weight of her emotions sitting in her chest. After this meeting, she knows that she'll be going back to her room. Alone, to cry or to scream. It's been 6 years since she found out she didn't have a mate, but with every person around her finding theirs, it got harder every day. At least she had York, she thought, but she knew that he'd probably find his at the next Alpha conference they went to. At least she'd have a new sister then, she reasoned, trying to pep herself up. Nobody in her family knew her emotions about this, and everyone tried to act jovial, but they all knew she'd be alone for the rest of her life, and she'd die alone. The fate of an unfortunate was worse than that of a wolf who had been rejected. If you got rejected, you could move on when you accept the rejection. There was no way to accept dying alone. Her aunt, Faye, was an unfortunate who had seemed to run in families. Although the scientists and doctors, Faye was as happy as she could be. Though, she worked with the orphan kids of the pack, because she said she knew what abandonment was like. The goddess had abandoned her. Avery was the motherly type, so she couldn't exactly do that. She was coarse and aggressive, and although sensitive, she was clumsy with her feelings. Avery, York, Zephyr, and Richard sit down at the table, with Zephyr on one side, sitting along with his guards standing behind him, although Avery doubted he needed those guards, especially by the looks of his arms. She blinked forcefully, making herself pay attention. York looked at her for a second, linking her privately. "You okay? You look upset. Did he say something to you?" He whispers through their link, his wolf nudging hers. "I'm fine. He said he was sorry. Shut up and let's get this over with." She responds, her face becoming a scowl. York's face softens a bit. It would have been a lot more convenient for everyone if he had been the mateless one. "So Zephyr, what made you want a truce?" York asks, opening his notepad and clearing his throat. The other man leans on the table, clasping his hands with a smile. Your pack is good. It's strong, and I like your allies, he states, leaning back afterwards. York sits there for a second, and then nods, shrugging his shoulders. I guess we'll let the council know tomorrow, then. We appreciate your visit, and I hope we can continue this conversation. We will need to discuss the finer points of our agreement, but I think they can be sorted later on. York smiles, and passes the page in front of him across the table to Zephyr. Zephyr scrawls his signature down, and passed it back across the table. I'll see myself out. He nods, and the two men shake hands. Avery is impressed the two men who had ignored each other more or less for 2 years had finally spoken. Avery stands up to follow Zephyr out, but as she goes, York grabs her arm and turns her towards him. I did that for you. You know her. He mumbles. She's 22 and has no mate yet. Avery stares at him for a minute, and then shakes him off, rolling her eyes. Quickly walking after Zephyr, she catches up with ease. I'm sorry to hear about your lack of mate, Avery gently says, patting him on the back. He shrugs, walking along beside her as he heads back to his pack boundary. I'm sick of the pity too. They stroll in relative silence, and the part ways at the boundary, both shifting into wolf form. Part 3 the next day is dull. Clouds hang over the pack, and everyone looks at the sky fearfully. Avery can't bring herself to get out of bed. It's like this every time it's cloudy. The day she turned 23, there was a historic storm. That storm marked the occasion and realization that Avery Wilco-TT was mateless. York and her parents checked in on her, but they all know it's best to leave her alone when shifts like this. The sadness sat in her chest, and she felt defeated. This is what the problem was with being unfortunate. A mate bond helped to prevent negative, overwhelming emotions. Without one, you were entirely left to your own devices. She sat up, bored of staring at the ceiling. The emptiness still there. It was always there, she supposed, but being surrounded by people helped. She scrambled through her bedside table drawers, searching for the medicines she was given for these moods. She dry swallows to tablets, wincing as they ease their way down. The day passes exactly like that, with Avery sitting in silence and staring at the surrounding four walls. Eventually, a knock startles her out of her trance-like state. Come in, she calls as evolves, her voice cracking from lack of use. A small, purple-haired lady pops her head in, a pitying look on her face as she pops into the bed beside her niece. Hello, Poppet. She beams, wrapping her arms around the girl and squeezing her. I hear you're down in the dumps today. Avery nods, having little energy to argue. We're going to go see the kids. They have so much energy that some of it has to rub off on you. Dear, she whispers, gently easing her niece out of bed. Just like she does every time. Does it ever get better? Avery asks faintly, staring at herself in the mirror. Faye avoids her eyes, pulling a sunflower print dress out of the wardrobe and throwing it at her niece. No, but you learn to live with it, she says quietly, fishing out a pair of black boots from a drawer and putting them beside the bed. The walk to the Pack orphanage is quiet, with Faye leading Avery along. Avery stares vacantly ahead of her, entirely unaware that she is the subject of conversation for some of those watching. This can't keep happening, York says grimly, looking at his father as they both watch from the windows of the mansion. I know, but she's doomed to be like this. She doesn't have a mate, and she won't ever have a mate. He sighs. She told me last week that she's as useless as a human. All she can do is shift, and she's doing that less now. York rubs his attempt at a beard and shrugs. We could always try to set her up with someone, he suggests, and Richard shakes his head, shooting his son an irritated look. Everyone else has a mate, and if they don't want an unfortunate, he whispers, his chest tightening with pity for his eldest child. Why don't you find an unfortunate for her then, instead of gossiping every day like little girls? Marie snaps, appearing in the office with a mug of coffee in hand. The two men jump at her sudden appearance, both so focused on the conversation they didn't even hear her enter. They both stutter a bit, making excuses and gradually becoming redder in the face. They're all low rank. York finally manages to get out, still a little startled by his mother's appearance. Marie raises a brow, shaking her head. I have it on good authority from Alpha Ogan's mother that there is another Alpha who is an unfortunate. She shrugs, before walking back out of the room. Who York shrieks, chasing after his mom, with Richard close on his heels. I don't know. You should have to do some of the work yourself. I can't do it all, she retorts, slamming the kitchen door in the men's faces. The boys reel back, shocked by Mary's abrupt departure. As soon as Avery and Faye walk into the orphanage, they're surrounded by little children, the next happier than the last. Avery, one particularly small child squeaks out, bouncing on her feet with a big smile on her face. Hello, Martha. Avery smiles, leaning down and petting the child on her shoulder, before two others grab her hands and pull her into the dining area. Avery, we did our exams, and we studied like you said. What's our prize? One cheers, another echoing him with, yeah, you said we could have a prize if we did well. Avery grins, turning around to the boys, and crouching down beside them. The prize. It's your turn to be the chasers and catch, she whispers, before taking off in a sprint, the boys shrieking as they run after her. Faye hears the heavy footsteps of her niece and the kids, and screams. No running in the house. Everybody goes silent, and the guilty parties call back. Sorry, Aunt Faye. There is a palpable sense of happiness and excitement in the air. The kid's absolutely delighted to have somebody else in the house. The longer she stays here, in this happy little bubble, the more Avery feels better. The sadness is still there, but she has a distraction. As she gets stabbed, she turns around and fast walks after the child that caught her. Little Mark giggles and tries to run, but tumbles. Halfway through his tumble, he shifts into his wolf pup, looking thoroughly baffled at what happened. Avery bursts out laughing, walking over to pick up him. She strolls down the stairs, cradling the little pup, and walking into the garden, past Faye. Faye catches her eye and glares at the two of them, shaking her head good-naturedly. No shifting in the house, she calls after them, throwing a pair of shorts out the door for Mark. Avery rests Mark on the ground, and he squeaks in distress. She puts her hand on his head, rubbing between his ears with a smile. Just visualize yourself in your human form, she whispers, soothing him, and then taking a step back. A second later, she hears bones cracking, and a rustling of clothes. I hate when that happens, he mumbles, hiding his face, which is colored a brilliant bright red. Avery sighs, pulling him into a hug. He was an early shifter, a very early shifter. Normally, pups shifted at around 12. He had shifted just before his 7th birthday, and since nobody knew who his parents were, he had been left at the border shortly after he was born at Caldent. He determined if it was genetic or a fluke. You'll be able to control it soon. You're only 7. Avery cheers, rubbing his back as she leads him back inside. Keeping an eye on the boy, he looks a little upset still. And that worries her. Shooing all the children into the play area, Faye walks to the stove, stirring something in a large pot. What's going on in that big head of yours? She asks with a smile, glancing at Avery. Poor Mark. Ivy heard one or two of the others tease him about his random shifts, but he really can't control it. I was wondering if I could train him. She ponders hesitantly, running a hand through her hair. Faye stays silent for a minute, turning to face her niece with a slight frown. That could be good for him, but you might have to take one or two of the others who have shifted too. She responds, looking at her niece out of the corner of her eye. Why? Avery asks, standing up from her seat curiously. Faye hesitates, biting her lips and turning back to the stove. feeling tears stinging her eyes. Why, Avery repeats, walking closer to her aunt. Because people aren't sure you have complete control of your wolf, since she has no mate. Face as quietly, avoiding eye contact with her niece, who immediately looks downcast. Oh, Avery mumbles, walking back to her seat. I'm gonna head home, she announces, clearing her throat. To which Faye whips around. Will you not stay for dinner? Faye asks, looking at her niece with concern in her eyes. My wolf might attack people. You know, since she doesn't have a mate. Avery snaps, and then claps a hand over her mouth, furrowing her brows. Sorry? I'm really sorry. Avery blurts out, walking quickly out the door into the cool, dusky evening. Part for anger, a very familiar emotion, was coursing through her veins. She was seething. She knew people didn't like what she was, but to worry for children around her, she was a rogue. She was Deputy Alpha, running along the border, her gray wolf darting in and out of trees, its powerful paws pounding on the ground. Her wolf took over as soon as she left the orphanage, overpowering her human side. She was fine with it. Avery knew her wolf was stupid, and she could fight better than most males. Nothing scared her, except maybe her mother. If she figured out Avery ripped another dress shifting, her wolf comes to a sudden halt, her nose pressed to the forest floor as she starts sniffing. What the fuck are you doing? Avery asks, and she gets growled at. Lovely. Even her wolf doesn't want to deal with her. There's somebody else here. Her wolf snarls, inching forward slowly, following the scent eagerly. Her wolf pads silently and slowly along, squinting her eyes at something in the distance, continuing her slow pace. Avery can't distinguish the scent from the forest, but she supposes that's what her wolf is useful for. Something is moving in the distance. It is staying low, but she can see a tail or something, so that rules out a rabbit or a squirrel. It's much too large to be a squirrel. Her wolf is totally ignoring her now, intent on hunting and attacking this creature, whether or not it poses a threat to her. It could hurt somebody else, and she isn't going to let that happen when she could stop it. Her wolf's moral compass is a bit more tilted than hers, she supposes, but it is very rare that her wolf gains full control. Usually, it's equally split, if not completely in Avery's hands what they do. Her wolf is about 2 meters from the other wolf when she decides to spring. Much to Avery's alarm, Sonia, her wolf, lands on the other wolf's back, digging her claws and teeth in mercilessly. What Sonia did not anticipate, but Avery expected, is that this wolf is considerably large, and starts trying to buck off Sonia. Avery mentally rolls her eyes, watching this happen as an observer, as Sonia buckles down and wraps her hind legs around the other wolf's midriff. The other wolf freezes, its white coat rustling in the gentle wind, before throwing itself backwards into a tree. Sonia, as expected, bears the brunt of the impact, and suddenly shifts, leaving Avery sitting naked against a tree, very confused and in a fair amount of pain. The other wolf lets out a breath of air that sounds like a snort, before shifting back. Avery suddenly realizes her position, and quickly covers herself up, scuttling behind a tree and cursing the day she was ever born. She isn't shy, or modest to any degree. She just has no idea who the hell is on the other side of that tree, and she doesn't plan if she can avoid it. She tries shifting, but her wolf isn't responding, apparently taking the pain on herself. Avery curses her as well, letting her anger flow through their bond. Somebody clears their throat on the other side of the tree, and then chuckles. Are you planning on coming out any time? Miss, you did attack me first. A deep-voiced man laughs, and Avery scowls, clenching her jaw, but doing some calming breath before responding. If you leave, it'll come out, she responds, staring up at the trees to see if there's any clothing bags. She spots one, and peeks around the tree to see where the man is. HES facing the opposite way, seeming to do the same. Avery bites her lip, and gets ready to run and jump for the bag, knowing it'll be a little harder without her wolf supporting her. Counting back from 3, Avery fires herself at the bag, snatching it from the branches it's balanced on, only to land beside a very tall, very naked man. Fuck's sake, she growls, glaring at the man, not a shred of fear in her eyes. Fuck's sake indeed. He grins, staring her up and down with a happy smile on his face. She clenches her jaw again, trying not to grind her teeth. Her dentist would murder her if she ruined the teeth he spent so long fixing after her last fight. Avery begins to walk away, gripping the bag between her hands, moving quickly in order to put some distance between her and this male. He clears his throat, and she glances back, only to see him red-faced and rubbing his neck. How is the view from behind even? He mutters, and she hears him, taking it as a bit of a compliment. She adds a bit of a swing to her step, opening the bag and slipping on a T-shirt while she walks. Unfortunately, this seems to be one of the bags for the younger teenagers, so she has to add the shorts that are in it as well. She truly doesn't want to flash anybody on purpose that guy was an accident. She can hear footsteps behind her, and she raises a brow, still trying to figure out who this guy is. She has never seen him before. She knows this because he is so unbelievably hot, and she would definitely remember his face. An arm is thrown around her shoulders, and she elbows him away from her, walking even faster to get away from him. So, Cupcake, do you think you can show me where the Alpha House is? He asks with a grin, and she holds back from rolling her eyes, slipping her feet into the water shoes in the bag. Chess asked the border patrol to pick up her boots from earlier on their rounds. She had only just gotten them broken in, and even Sonia had the respect to let her take them off before shifting. Sure, I suppose that's on my way. She sighs, slamming the almost empty bag into his chest, and increasing her pace yet again. So why are you here? She inquires, using the 5-minute fast walk to get information. She still can't get a pack sent off this mail, and he doesn't belong to her as she would have noticed. I have a meeting with the Alpha, or accurately, the old Alpha, he states nonchalantly, and Avery furrows her brow, trying to mind Link York. She didn't set up this meeting, and she sets up all the meetings. What's your name? She asks, memorizing his face. She suddenly realizes HES still naked, and grunts. Put some damn clothes on. Well, which? Well, sweetheart, I'm Roman, and I'd like to ask a question. Too, he smirks, not trying to be patronizing or anything, which surprises her. Do I have an effect on you? Is that why you want me to put some clothes on? She leaps away from him, staring at him in mild disgust. Trust me, I wouldn't sleep with you if you were the last man on earth. She responds bluntly, watching him out of the corner of her eye, while he hops into the final pair of shorts. Unfortunately for him, they're very obviously shorts for a teenage girl. Definitely not made to fit a very tall, very muscular man who said anything about sleeping. He winks, but the shorts are too much for Avery. She can't even look him in the eyes without laughing. The remaining few minutes of the walk is done in silence, with Avery occasionally bursting into peals of laughter as he has to frequently fix the shorts to contain himself. You could switch shorts with me. I have to see the alpha of this pack. He grumbles, and she turns to look at him with a big smile. I think he'll really love you like this. Before skipping up the driveway to where her father and brother are waiting, looking very surprised to see her. York is so shocked that he doesn't even notice Roman behind her. How are you now? York asks quietly, his eyes scanning his sister to make sure she's in one piece and at least physically okay. Avery communicates with him with her eyes, and he shuts up, staring at her suspiciously, all while Richard stares behind her, his eyes taking in Roman, Elful Lancaster. He manages to get out, still looking very confused. Putty, Richard greets his daughter, pulling her into his side. Elful Lancaster. Avery snorts. At the same time Roman says honey, in a mocking tone. No. So they've met. York laughs, disappearing into the house to gossip with his mum, leaving Richard to handle the alpha and the daughter. Part 5. You're not as clever as you to think you are. Marie smirks, laughing a little as she observes her son hiding in the kitchen with her. What do you mean? York hisses, choosing her as they peek out the kitchen door and watch Richard walk into one of the conference rooms with Avery and Roman, the former looking smug, and the latter still looking a bit lost. So where are your guards? Oh, almighty Alpha Lancaster. Avery grins, throwing herself into one of the spinning chairs around the table. Richard clears his throat, sending a silent message to his daughter to behave, and she shuts her mouth and sits up properly. Her dad is rarely serious with her, so she knows to zip it and pay attention. She still doesn't appreciate that she's been left entirely in the dark about whatever is about to happen. Richard throws a set of clothes at Roman, and he catches them with an appreciative look on his face, walking into the bathroom to change, and emerging in under a minute, the dress, pants, and button-up shirt hugging him as though they were painted on. Avery stares at him, enjoying the view. They all sit around the table, Avery at the head, Roman on her right, and Richard on Avery's left. What I am about to ask involves both of you. Richard begins, looking very hesitant to open his mouth. I want your help in finding the unfortunate alpha, he announces, and Roman's brow furrows for a second. What did he just say? Sonia gapes. Honestly, I have no idea. Avery responds to her wolf, equally baffled why. He asks, raising his brow, clasping his hands on the table in front of him. Avery also leans forward, curious about what her father is going to say. Because I want to arrange a meeting between him and Avery, he states, and Avery bolts out of her seat, her face turning scarlet. Dad, she snarls, looking ready to leap at him and scratch his eyes out. Roman senses this and leaps out of his seat too, making her sit back down, and leaving his hands on her shoulders, staring at Richard evenly. With Richard involved, it wouldn't be a friendly meeting. It would be a meeting he set up with the intent of having his daughter find somebody. Richard was a great dad, and he never let anyone say a bad word about Avery's status, but he had never stopped trying to find her somebody, even when she begged him to leave it alone and wait for nature to take its course. I won't set that up without Avery's consent, Roman states, and the older man twitches, two sets of eyes boring into him. I am asking you, Alpha to Alpha, Richard says, standing up and staring at the other man. Richard, I am asking you, as a father, to consider what you are asking me and what this says to Avery. Roman responds, letting go of Avery's shoulders as he feels her standing up. Avery is shaking with rage, and she points a finger at her father. Avery, he tries, and she shakes her head, her face crunched. I don't care. You had absolutely no right, she growls, and Richard's face crumbles, walking towards his daughter, but Roman stands in between them. With all due respect, Richard, I think she needs to cool off, Roman says quietly to the man, keeping an eye on Avery in case she springs at her father. She attacked me an hour ago, and her wolf isn't fully healed yet. Avery can feel her anger simmering, but she suddenly realizes why she recognizes Roman's name, HES the Alpha that everyone calls the Peacekeeper. That's why HES never at council meetings, HES always sorting out other people's problems. Avery, you have to understand we can't see you go through another day like today or the other times. Richard whispers, his attention entirely focused on his daughter, and only seeming to hear half of what Roman said. Attack? Why did you attack him? Richard mutters, and then decides it's less important than the matter at hand, mind-linking Marie to come and join him. She walks in and can sense the tension in the room, raising a brow and staring at her husband. What did you do? She links him, looking at the alpha standing in between the pair, stopping her daughter from attacking her husband. I asked him to help me set up a meeting between Avery and the alpha who's like her. He responds quickly, praying his wife can stop this. Marie raises a brow, walking over to behind her husband and pulling him a few steps back. That was a choice for her to make. You should have given her the information and let her choose. You may as well be arranging a marriage for her. The way you've gone about this. She whispers in his ear. Avery nods in agreement. Roman steps out from between them, looking hugely awkward and uncomfortable. I didn't mean to overstep. He'll be leaving now, but don't hesitate to get in contact with me if there are any more issues or questions, he says softly, turning around to walk out the door. Take her with you, Richard says suddenly, to which all three of the others respond with, What? For training, he says hurriedly, wringing his hands out of stress and fear of his daughter taking it wrong. What do you mean? Alpha Roman asks, turning back around curiously and warily. She has trained under 6 alphas, including me. She hasn't trained in the West. Though, which though? Richard quickly elaborates. His wife and daughter are staring at him in abject horror, wondering where HES going with this. York gets mind-linked by his mother and sister to get into the conference room as soon as possible, and he hurries in, having the situation explained by his aghast mother. Roman stares back, also looking very confused. She could find someone she likes on your territory. Richard adds, and Roman breathes in so suddenly and intensely that a button pops off the shirt HES wearing. Dad, you're not the alpha anymore, York sharply interjects, looking at his sister and her widened eyes. Watch what you say about my deputy. The hard undertone to York's voice makes Avery turn to look at him, and it makes Marie nod firmly. If you wouldn't mind going into the kitchen, I can have somebody make you some tea. Or coffee if you prefer. Coffee if you prefer, Marie says kindly and softly, pointing towards the door that enters the kitchen. Roman nods silently, walking to where she pointed. The family clearly need time alone to talk. Have you lost your mind? Marie roars, turning on Richard as soon as the other alpha is out of the room. Or time to shout either way works. York raises his brows and grabs Avery's arm, leading her to the other side of the room. What the hell? Richard, she isn't land or a prisoner. You don't just exchange her. Marie continues, her volume rising and her anger increasing. Richard stands there, looking a bit baffled. I just wanted her to find somebody and be happy. He stutters, and Marie turns red with anger, just like her daughter does. She doesn't need somebody to make her happy. She screams, and the 2 Wilco TT children present wince a little bit, leaning back as if to try to escape the magnitude of her anger. York pulls Avery towards the kitchen, glancing over his shoulder apprehensively at his angry mother and his clueless father. He sits Avery down at the kitchen table and slides a glass of water in front of her, observing her. Avery seems detached from everything happening, and HES scared whenever she gets quiet and cold. She lashes out. Roman is sitting on a heist to let the marble bar, watching how the silent siblings interact. You can come to my pack if you want, he states nonchalantly, shrugging his shoulders. York stares at him, furrowing his brows. I'd prefer my deputy stays here, where I need her to do her job. York shoots in his direction, wrapping his arm around Avery, who sips her water in absolute silence. She could do her work from there. She wouldn't even have to leave the pack house. If she wanted to get out of here for even a week, I would understand. Absolutely no offense to you. Your father said some things in there, and I don't think he worded them as he meant to. Roman says carefully, maintaining eye contact with York. It's up to her. She can make her own decisions. York states, squeezing his older sister gently. I want to go. Avery mumbles, looking remarkably sad. Part 6. The silence is deafening for a moment or two, and then Alpha Roman stands up, nodding his head. Alpha Wilco TT, if you could get paperwork done, you'll have it approved within the hour, he says quietly, putting his hand out for a handshake. York shakes it firmly, nodding also. You'll get it done and sent over. He responds in a similarly soft and gentle tone, standing up from where he was sitting. Avery watches this exchange, standing up to. I can be on your territory tomorrow, she states stiffly. Thank you. Roman lets out a laugh, shaking his head. Don't be silly. Woko TT. I'll wait for you. My guards are almost here. I would have been with them, but I got out to stretch my legs, and then got attacked by someone. He teased as gently, trying to get a smile out of her. She gives him a small smile, drinking the rest of her water before putting the glass into the sink. They'll need an hour maybe to pack. If that's okay, she says, and then shakes her head like a dog with water in its ears does. She vanishes up the stairs, moving swiftly and silently. Is she okay? Roman asks quietly, because I can't take her if she'll lash out randomly and kill someone in my pack. York stares at him, slightly shocked. No, she wouldn't kill anyone. Bame them a little, but not unprovoked. He tries to reassure him. She is okay. Though, she had a really bad day. It's always like that when it's cloudy. Roman emits a small laugh, shaking his head. It's never cloudy where my pack is. He finally gets out, after a minute or two of staring at York in disbelief. It's nice to meet you. I've only ever heard of you once or twice, which is good. It means you're a good alpha. Roman adds, nodding at York. Oh well, I've heard plenty about you. Mostly good. York smiles weakly, feeling extremely awkward now. Upstairs, Avery hurries around her room, scooping lots of clothing out of her chest of drawers. They've said it's only for a week, but you can never be too prepared, she supposes, as she packs 20 for pairs of underwear, adding the same amount of socks. She nods in satisfaction, moving on to jeans. She's waiting for her wolf to pipe up and ask her what's going on, but it hasn't happened yet. She's full of her own questions. She knows that her dad was trying to be helpful, but she can't believe he didn't speak to her about this before he did it. He was normally on her side totally, and he always said he understood that she didn't really want anyone, as it would just be a reminder of what she couldn't have properly. Apparently, it would seem he didn't understand. It was clear he was doing what he thought was best, but she wondered, when has his best ever worked for her? Getting away from her pack could be good. She reasoned. The west was supposed to be sunny, which would be nice. It was getting colder here, which meant she'd probably have more bad days than good in the upcoming months. A working vacation. She nods. There might be a beach there. She hadn't been to a beach in years, not that she really wanted to. She hated sand and sun. Anywhere other than here is a vacation. Sonia snorts. With that thought in her head, she packs all the sunscreen she can find in her room, adding 3 bikinis into the first case. A knock on the door brings her out of her packing frenzy, and she looks up quickly, walking to the door and opening it to see a short woman holding a bag. Oh, hello. She smiles, desperately trying to recall the woman's name. She had detailed her to Border Patrol herself. Elizabeth. Emily. Emmy. It was definitely Emmy. Hello, Deputy. Here are the boots you requested we find and return to you. She smiles, handing the bag over to Avery. Avery beams at her, the return of her beloved boots brightening her day up. Thank you so much, she calls after the guard, holding in a squeal. She packs the boots, even though she's going to a much sunnier climate. They were finally comfortable, and she was missing out on that. Throwing in as many dresses as she can find, she walks to the bathroom to collect her box of razors and her hair and skin products. She's pretty good at this packing thing. If you consider packing to be good, it only takes her half an hour to pack enough clothes for almost a month. And once she's done, she does a once-over of the room, throwing in her phone chargers, and running down to her office to grab her laptop and any important files she needs. She crams the files in on top of her dresses, flattening them out and making sure none of the papers are crushed. Once she's totally finished packing her bags, she leaves them in the hallway, before sprinting off to the orphanage quickly. She bangs on the door, and once her aunt answers, she yanks her into a tight hug. Faye is surprised, and tries to step back until she realizes who it is. And then she wraps her arms around her knees. I know you didn't want to tell me. I'm the one who pushed, and I'm sorry for getting angry and running out. Avery mumbles, squeezing her aunt tightly. I'm going to the West for a week or two. For training. My mom is really pissed off at Dad, so you might have to help Yerk do some damage control. Faye raises an eyebrow, but doesn't question anything she was told. Kissing her niece's cheek. You're certainly dressed for the West. I don't know how you didn't catch frostbite. She scolds, looking at the shorts and shirt her niece has on. It's 9 p.m. You should be in your pajamas at this time of night. Avery giggles at her aunt, shaking her head at her old-fashioned ways. I have to go. I love you, she calls, taking off in a run back to her house. As soon as she gets in the door, York is waiting for her, looking very confused, until he realizes she was with Faye. I just have to change, and I'll be ready to go. She smiles, hopping up the stairs. Do you want me to get Mom and Dad so you can say goodbye? He calls after her, raising a brow. Mom, yes. I'll speak to Dad when I get to the West. I need to cool off before I speak to him. I don't want to be unnecessarily mean. She links him, walking into her bedroom and quickly getting changed into her fluffiest jumper and pajama bottoms, which she purposely didn't pack. Grabbing her handbag, she puts her feet into her blue trainers and hurries back down the stairs, jumping from the fourth last one to the floor happily. Marie greets her, sweeping her into a hug and a squeeze. You take care of yourself over there, she whispers, and then moves to the mind link. Don't get yourself in too much trouble. I love you. Mom, Avery giggles, squirming out of her tight grip, and hurrying to join Alpha Roman in the black sedan awaiting her. Part 7. The journey is quiet and long, without much chatter in the vehicle. Avery gets restless after sleeping upright for 7 hours, and her phone only amuses her for so long, until she turns to Roman. So, how much longer is it going to be until we arrive? She finally blurts out, her voice breaking the silence, and giving the driver in the front a bit of a fright. Roman looks up from the files he has open in front of him, and observes her with a mild smile on his face. Your brother warned me you don't do well with long car journeys. It should only be another few hours. We're crossing through pack territories instead of the highways. He chuckles, pushing a pair of glasses back up his nose. I like those. Sonia chirps up in a very mind, giving her a bit of a fright so the little bitch had decided to come back. Avery liked the glasses too, but she wasn't going to tell him that his ego seemed big enough. How long is a few hours? I need to go to the bathroom. Avery frowns, crossing her arms and slumping back in her seat like a toddler. We'll stop at the next gas station. Dames, Roman announces, returning to his file and ignoring Avery's question. So it's your Luna's name. I never had the pleasure of meeting her. Avery sighs, deciding to try and make conversation to pass the time. She has files, and her laptop with her, but she's too bored to even think about focusing on pack work. Everyone in the car, the driver, the 3 guards, and Roman stiffen, but Avery doesn't notice, staring out the window at the winding roads surrounded by trees. Max, Roman says shortly, and Avery's eyebrows raise, a little surprised. You're gay. I never heard that detail, but it's good to know. Is he okay with me coming to stay? I know my reputation precedes me a little. Avery chuckles dryly, remaining unaware of the tension in the car. Roman fidgets with his pen, correcting some mistakes in front of him, before looking up and turning to Avery to give her his full attention. He is a she, and she's dead, he states grimly, his keen eyes watching for any reaction she would give. Avery turns around slowly, horror painted on her face. Oh, I never knew that. I'm really sorry for intruding. She hurriedly gets out, her eyes wide and her hands twisting. So no, she doesn't mind you coming to my pack. And what reputation? Roman asks curiously, trying to lighten the mood. Avery stares at him, still in shock and feeling a little horrified. His attempt doesn't work on her, as she regrets opening her big mouth. We should have just asked to go for a quick run. I could have sorted out the bladder issue. Sonia cringes, tucking her tail around her snout to cover her eyes at her human's mishap. Avery has never agreed with her wolf more on anything. 20 minutes pass until they get to the gas station, and those 20 minutes had been passed in a horrified silence. Avery didn't know what to say, because she didn't want to say she was sorry for his lost alphas were rather volatile, and they didn't like pity. As she walks into the restroom like a ghost, she gets thinking. She was 28, and she didn't think Roman was much older than her. 30, she thinks. Maximum. People normally find their mates from about 16, so she would have been 14 when he could have found his mate. She would have heard about his mate's death. Even if she was 14, Roman was a Lancaster, and they ran a strong pack, literally named after them. A dead mate would have been reported. She finds it odd, but it's a nice distraction from listening to her wolf talk about how hot Roman is. It's not that she's just wrong, he is very, very attractive, but she won't impede on somebody else's territory, especially if she doesn't know if they ever claimed each other. A claim bounded wolves for life. It was done in the form of a bite at the bottom of the neck, and it showed that you had a mate, and were off the market. She couldn't remember if she had saw one the day before on him. She hadn't looked. Finishing up her business, she catches sight of herself in the mirror, and winces. Her hair looks almost white, and it's sticking up everywhere. A bird could have made a nest in the back of it, and she wouldn't be able to tell. Thank goddess nobody she knows will see her like this. She mentally thanks the goddess, scooping her mane into a ridiculous top knot, smoothing down her eyebrows, which she regrets. They looked worse after she did that. She peers at herself, staring down at her pajama bottoms. She truly looks homeless. The fact she looked like this in front of Alpha Rome and doesn't faze her in the least. She doesn't care about his opinion of her. She just appreciates him giving her somewhere to go that wasn't her pack. Walking out of the restroom, she finds Roman staring at the deli counter deep in thought. "What's up?" she asks, appearing beside him. He starts a little, then turns to her. "Do you think it would be safe for me to get a sandwich here?" He whispers in a hushed voice, and she bursts out laughing. "Since I have to be in the same car as you, I'm going to say no," she whispers back, muffling her giggles, and walking over to the fridges to get some water and fruit. Grabbing some snacks on her way to the register, she fishes her card out of her hoodie and pays, looking around the station aimlessly. Roman is standing like a statue, staring out of the window with a scowl on his face. "What's up?" she calls over to him, as the teenager behind the counter bags her stuff for her. Roman quickly paces over to her, grabbing the bag for her, and leaning over the counter to the teenager. "There are rogues outside, so get yourself somewhere safe. Link your alpha and gamma, because there are a lot of them." Roman hisses, making a various eyes widen in alarm. "What the fuck?" she groans, and then catches the scent. They smell like rotting flesh, like landfill or dead fish in 100-degree heat. She claps a hand over her nose and mouth, shuddering a little. Roman grabs her arm that isn't covering half of her face, pulling her out to the car. When they get there, the guards are looking uneasy, looking around the flat, open area. Roman puts the bag into the car and hands Avery a rifle, grabbing one himself. "I'm assuming you can use one. I'd heard about your fighting," he says grimly, and even though she knows that it is absolutely the wrong time to feel flattered, she nearly blushes and goes weak at the knees. "Of course I know how to use one," she grumbles instead, squinting at the trees. "Most rogues have gone insane. They've lost mates, or have been banished from packs, which is rare. Most have nothing to live for, and they start to rot from the inside out. Their blood literally creating a poison for any wolf that bit into them. Hence, guns were the preferred method of disposal. To not go insane is a lot harder than letting go when you lose a mate. which raises even more questions about Roman for Avery. The rogues that haven't gone insane generally stick to themselves, often forming small pack-like structures. Something moves in a bush, and Avery aims and fires straight away, not giving anything a chance. A gray wolf covered in blood slumps out from behind it, and Avery shoots again, for good measure. She gets a clap on the back from one of the guards, and they all quickly disperse from around their vehicle. The driver remains beside it, holding a rifle of his own and looking extremely angry. Avery wonders why maybe he's one of those people who really likes sticking to a schedule. Suddenly, a howl is heard, and a small swarm of wolves appear from the trees about 100 yards away from where Avery's group is. The bullets are fired, and wolf after wolf falls. Avery is suddenly very thankful she didn't try to shift. She turns around and sees a wolf less than 2 meters from Roman. Quickly firing, the wolf falls down into a puddle of its own blood. Roman turns around, startled, and chuckles. "I thought you were trying to shoot me, sweetheart." He smirks, firing at another one emerging from behind the gas station. "Not today. I need your help today." Avery smirks back, and within minutes, most of the rogues are dead. If they aren't dead, they're dying, or retreating quickly. Glancing at Roman, Avery notices that he looks puzzled and slightly irritated, so she has to know what's wrong. She asks, furrowing her brow, "I don't know if they were planning on attacking us, or just anybody." He murmurs, straightening up as the Alpha, Beta, and Gamma of the pack land thereon appear with a small number of warriors. "Hello, ALP. Oh, Avery." Alpha Tim beams, noting the amount of dead wolves on his land, and embracing the female who is taller than him by a notable amount. "Hello, Tim." She smiles, patting his back and turning to Roman so he can speak. "Hello, hello. Alpha Michaels," he says grimly, nodding to the shorter man, who looks a bit like Santa Claus. "So you ran into some trouble on your journey." The man sighs, shaking his head, and pointing his gamma off in the direction of the carnage. The tanned man leaves, looking none too happy about his orders, as he kicks a rogue out of his path. Avery raises an eyebrow at this, not agreeing with the man's treatment of the dead wolf. They weren't great alive, but that didn't give him any right to kick a dead body in her mind. Anyway, she sort of zones out whilst the alphas talk, looking around instead, buzzing off the adrenaline still running through her system. "Part 8 we're here," Roman grumbles, throwing the car door open and getting out with a scowl. He took a phone call in the last 15 minutes of the journey, and he was angry the entire time. Once he realized Avery was trying to listen in, he had barked at the man to switch to mind linking. It was accidental eavesdropping. She was so bored she could have listened to anything. Avery was a little miffed but also understood that it was probably pack business, so she busied herself with her work, finishing off reports of her pack's activity for the last 3 months. She forwards them to York and organizes his schedule for the next week. All calls to her desk had been routed to her cell phone until she could get a stable landline set up at the Lancaster pack. She had discovered that texting alphas were a lot easier to deal with. They cowed and argue as much, and she wondered if she could continue to deal with them this way. Once everyone else gets out, Avery exits the vehicle, looking around cautiously. The pack wouldn't, according to pack and regional law, attack her without knowing why she was there, so she didn't feel worried about that. She was more concerned about being seen with Roman, especially if his pack's looned-eyed recently. She really didn't need that sort of rumor going around she was a badge bunny for alphas. The sun is beating down, and Avery can feel herself heating up quickly. She doesn't want to burn, so getting inside is probably her best choice, even if it is near angry alpha. Carefully eyeing the people around her, Avery slowly moves towards the pack house that Roman and the others entered, leaving her luggage in the sedan. The interior of the house is rustic, and there's a lot of wooden glass. It's a lot darker inside, and it takes Avery a minute to adjust to the dim hallway. Following the voices, she hears shouting from an office. Standing outside, She straightens up, acutely aware Shess still in her nightwear, knocking twice. She steps inside when she hears a pause from whoever is shouting. She steps in, observing the scene in front of her. Roman is standing up, and a vein in his temple is pulsing, his arms clenched. Aside from the Greek god in front of her, there is an average-sized woman who looks to be about 50, standing at the wall. Looking mildly bothered is who she assumes to be the Beta and Gamma of the Lancaster pack. After another second of staring, Avery recognizes the woman and she snickers. It's Amelia Lancaster, Roman's mother. And what are you laughing at? The woman rounds on her, her fist at her sides, as she stares at the tall, pale statue of a girl. That Roman isn't the one shouting for once. After I saved his life and he didn't even thank me, Avery says innocently, widening her eyes and putting her hands behind her back. You let her call you Roman. Emits from Amelia, while at the same time Roman shouts, You tried to kill me first. Joining Roman's Beta and Gamma by the wall, she watches the scene. Troublemaker, the Gamma mutters, giving her a look that reeks of behave yourself. Sonia ruffles within Avery, and she stares at the Gamma, her alpha scent filling the room as she moves to assert dominance on this man. Deputy Alpha Wilco TT. Roman barks, Please leave my men alone. And Ben, apologize. Avery shrugs and goes to stand beside the Beta instead, folding her arms. She doesn't take being threatened well, especially if it's by someone of a lower rank than her. The chaos gradually settles down into another tense silence, but Avery is in her own head. Deputy Alpha Wilco TT. What happened to Sweetheart? Sonia asks in disgust. Avery is inclined to agree. I suppose he only uses that when nobody else is around. Pity for him and nobody's dirty little secret. Avery growls in response. Let's talk about this rationally. Amelia starts, taking a seat. That's what I wanted to do. You're the one who barged in here screaming. Roman grumbles, sitting down in his seat. Avery, this pertains to you, so you should sit also. Ryan, Ben, please leave. This doesn't concern you at the moment. The Gamma shuffles out immediately, but the Beta stay for a moment, looking somewhat surprised that he was told to leave. Like a good second in command, he listens, closing the door gently behind him. So why is she here? Amelia asks, and Avery raises her brows, turning to look at the woman who speaks of her with such disdain. I'm here for training purposes. Avery interjects since the woman won't speak directly to her. Her brother wanted to see how we do things in the West. They're a good pack. We agreed to take Deputy Alpha Wilco TT in exchange for them training some of our warriors, Roman states, which was a surprise to Avery. She didn't know warriors from the Lancaster pack had landed on her territory, and usually, she would be informed of it before your Quibi. And you couldn't take the young Alpha himself? Amelia asks Roman, entirely ignoring Avery. Avery grits her teeth, her wolf not liking the disrespect. Shess already on edge from the last 2 days, but Shess reining her anger and she can't attack the former Luna of a pack for being ignored. Blatant disrespect. Yes, but being ignored doesn't count as that. No, mother. He's a pack to run. Roman grits out, turning on his computer. So you had to take this sorry excuse for a she-wolf. She snarls, standing up. Avery is digging her nails into her palms at this point, and the metallic tang of blood fills the room as she breaks the skin. Mother, you have no right to insult a visiting rank, Roman states scoldly, beginning to type on his laptop. Shess an unfortunate, and a slut. The older woman shrieks and Avery stands up so quickly that her chair flies back. Twice in 2 days. She mentally applauds herself. She does have a flair for the dramatic. I may be unfortunate, but don't you dare call me a slut. Avery hisses, stepping closer to the older woman. Roman doesn't interfere. This is his mother's battle, and he doesn't intend to step in unless Avery intends to strike. Don't think news of your escapades haven't reached me. Who haven't you screwed at those committee meetings? Amelia spits, and Avery raises an eyebrow, laughing. Oh my god. Is that what this is about? I don't hear you saying that to any of the unmated males. Avery chuckles, shaking her head and stepping back from the woman. The double standards around here. Gosh, maybe I should just wear a scarlet letter. Amelia seems surprised by Avery's sardonic reaction. It's almost as if she expected the younger female to fight. Plus, I hear you got around much more than I ever have when you were younger and you had a lot less time. Avery adds innocently. At that, Roman stands up, hastily getting in between the two women, knowing his mother was going to explode at the younger girl. He's a little surprised by what he heard, but he's glad he stood up when he did. He really didn't want to hear about his mother's sex life.